Hello, good morning. I'm Inji Saman, a project development engineer from the Office Environmental Management. I am responsible for reviewing the PD&E for all ETDM programming screening. As you know, the purpose and need are the foundation for the PD&E study and need to be clear and defensible. We hope this training will help develop more consistent purpose and need statement across the district. And with that, let me introduce Wendy Lasher, who is a NEPA and ETDM specialist. She has been working with Adkin for 26 years and has provided ETDM and purpose and need support to FDOT statewide for 20 years. And for now, start with Wendy.
Great. Welcome to the FDOT Office of Environmental Management and Purpose and Needs Statement Training. Before we get started, we want to make sure to note that any non-FDOT attendees who wants credit for the class will need to provide their name, email, and the PE number, if applicable, in the chat box. We'll use this information to send out certifications. Okay, with that, we will get started. So for some people, the purpose and need statement can be the most difficult section to write in a NEPA document. And at the same time, it is one of the most important sections of the document. If you do not have an approved purpose and needs statement, your project will not advance. This training is to support the FDOT and practitioners in explaining what is a purpose and needs statement, how do we develop a purpose and needs statement, and how do we use a purpose and needs statement. Each of these items will be covered in today's training and will be identified at the bottom of the slide with a tab like the one shown here that says, what is a purpose and needs statement? Also, throughout this training, we will have interactive quiz questions through Mentimeter. So have your phone or computers ready for when we get to those questions after each section at menti.com. That's MENTI.com. It is always important to know why we do things in our profession and understand the legal requirements of those actions. This slide identifies just a few of the regulations pertaining to purpose and need. The first one is shown on the left. That's legal guidance, which originates from the NEPA CEQ regulation 40 CFR section 1500 to 1508. And in 1502.13, it says the statement shall briefly specify the underlying purpose and need to which the agency is responding and proposing the alternatives, including the proposed action. Then Federal Highway followed the CEQ with regulations they established under 23 CFR 771. The third regulation is 23 CFR Appendix A to Part 450, linking the transportation planning and NEPA processes, which states the transportation planning process also provides a potential forum to define a project's purpose and need by framing the scope of the problem to be addressed by the proposed project. Furthermore, a well-written and well-justified purpose and needs statement will accomplish the following. It'll explain why impacts are acceptable based on the project's importance, establish why FDOT is proposing to spend large amounts of taxpayers' money, and to justify to the public and decision makers that the expenditure of funds is necessary. The U.S. Department of Agriculture wrote that when challenged in court, agencies have won every case where the needs statement was narrowly stated and lost every case where the needs statement was broadly stated or absent. Legal challenges to NEPA compliance are made under the Administrative Procedure Act, which is a federal act that governs the procedures of an administrative law such as NEPA. In NEPA, plaintiffs' common claims challenge a federal agency's action as being arbitrary, which is not supported by fair or substantial cause or reason, or capricious, which is inconsistent or erratic. Also, an abuse of discretion because of an agency's failure to meet NEPA's requirements, and/or insufficient documentation of environmental review. A purpose and need statement supports the decision-making process when it is written with simple and clear text where lay readers, including the judge, should be able to review the listed needs and conclude that the agency has a credible rationale for proposing actions in the project area. So moving from the why, we are now going to dive into the what. A purpose and needs statement provides justification of why the proposed improvement should be implemented. It drives the process from development and evaluation of reasonable, prudent, and practicable alternatives consideration, and ultimately the selection of a preferred alternative. It is comprehensive, as specific as possible, and is re-examined and updated as appropriate throughout the project development process, which I will discuss more towards the end of the training. So in plain language, the purpose is the what of the proposed action. What FDOT is trying to accomplish. It should be stated as the positive outcome that is expected. For example, the purpose is to reduce traffic congestion in the corridor. The need is the why the proposed action is needed. It identifies the problem or problems the proposed project will address. It should establish the evidence that the deficiency or problem exists or will exist if projected population and planned land use growth are realized. I would like to bring your attention to the word evidence. I will be explaining this in more detail later in this training. The common perception of the purpose and need statement is that it is difficult to write. But if you keep to these simple definitions above, writing it can be a straightforward task. The development of a purpose and need statement is the critical first step that begins in planning and evolves throughout the PD&E phase as more information is known about the project. It is the foundation the project is built upon. Think of it as a foundation of a house that is built on, or the first tier of a multi-layer cake. It is important that this foundation is firm and can fully support the project. We just went through what a purpose and need statement is, but we also need to identify what it is not. Most importantly, it is not a solution statement. We are not solving the problem with a purpose and need statement, just stating what the project is and why it is needed. The purpose and need statement should be narrowly stated, but it should not be too vague to not be useful or written in complicated or unclear text. It should not show obvious bias in the project justifications, nor be inadequate to support each subsequent stage in the NEPA analysis and in the final decision document. Also, it should not be a decision of it should not be a discussion of alternatives or of a particular action. The project description and other parts of the NEPA document will cover this information. Lastly, do not sell the project with the purpose and need statement. So before we move into our training section, we have a few quiz questions to make sure we understand what is a purpose and need statement. So go to menti.com, so it's MENTI.com on your computer or on your phones. And you'll see at the top of the screen a code. When you get to menti.com, please type that code, and this question should pop up for you, and you can read through it and answer that question. If you have issues, just please continue to try. Letting us know in the chat probably won't help anything at this point, but just log in and log back out, or out and back in. Okay. One moment. So the correct answer is B, a failure to meet the schedule that the federal agency committed to during scoping. The schedule is created at the beginning of the project and is usually modified throughout the PD&E study. It is typically not used as a basis for legal challenge. Our next question is here, and it's true or false. I guess, sorry, I should be asking you the questions too. The purpose and needs statement drive a process for development and evaluation of reasonable, prudent, and practicable alternatives, true or false. Okay. You are right if you answer true. The purpose and needs statement explains to the reader why an agency action is necessary and serves as a basis for identifying reasonable alternatives which meet the purpose and need. Okay. And that is it for our questions right now. Let me just set up for the next set and we will go back to the presentation. Okay. So we are now moving into how do we develop purpose and need statement segment of the training. This is the meat of the training where we will dig deeper into what a purpose and need should look like, the elements of the need, and you will see both good and bad examples of a purpose and need statement. The examples used for the training are based on real projects, but have been changed with fictitious details and have been simplified for training purposes. We will start with how to define the purpose and then move into the need. Earlier, we discussed the purpose is the what of the proposed action, what FDOT is trying to accomplish. So we want to write a problem statement. When doing this, state the reason why the FDOT is proposing a certain project, and the purpose should articulate in 1 or 2 sentences the project's primary objectives. We do not want to be overly broad such that it invites the consideration of an infinite number of alternatives. So here is an example of a good purpose. The purpose of the project is to reduce congestion and improve mobility on State Road 76 between Elm Street and Oak Avenue. A bad purpose might say the purpose of the project is to widen State Road 76 between Elm Street and Oak Avenue from a 2-lane road to a 4 lanes to relieve congestion. Here, the purpose sentence states a solution. It discusses a particular action, and it does not fully state the problem. These are things that should not be in a purpose statement. One moment. Okay. So I think we might have skipped a slide. Hold on. No, that's it. Sorry. Okay, so OEM is often asked, should primary and secondary purposes be included? And the answer is there can be primary and secondary purposes, but it is not required to have both. If you decide to have both, data must be provided to support both. Note, you can have multiple primary and secondary purposes. Sometimes it can be confusing to distinguish between the two. A primary purpose is a driver of the project. It reflects the fundamental reason why the project is being proposed, and it is used to develop and screen alternatives. Whereas a secondary purpose is an additional purpose. It is desirable but not critical. It is not the core purpose of the project. A secondary purpose is not used to screen alternatives. However, they may be able to support selection of a preferred alternative. An example of a purpose that has been both primary and secondary is the purpose of this project is to improve roadway deficiencies along Florida Road between Riverview Drive and College Avenue. That's the primary purpose. In addition, a goal of this project is to improve safety conditions for vehicle and pedestrian traffic, and that's the secondary purpose. So now I want to define the need. As a recap, the need is the why the proposed action is needed. It identifies the problem or problems the proposed project will address, but remember, we are not solving the problem. So when writing the need, we must provide data to support the purpose, which is the problem statement. In doing this, we describe the key problems that and the cause of those problems that are being addressed by the proposed project or action. Keep in mind these next 3 bullets as well. First, provide verifiable data in tables and graphs to document and demonstrate a need. I'll show you examples of this later in the training. Next, do not include non-transportation related issues or outcomes and goals that are desirable, but not essential. So for example, do not include minimization of environmental impacts. Lastly, we should be consistent with the purpose sentence. An example of a good need sentence is, the project is needed because State Road 76 between the intersections with Elm Street and Maple Street is inadequate to meet current and future traffic volumes, resulting in congestion, reduced mobility, and a level of service of F on this stretch of the highway. And it does not meet current design standards as the travel lanes are too narrow and there are no shoulders for this classification and roadway. This sentence would then be followed up with verifiable data using a table to quantify the level of service data. So one tip I'd like to leave you with here is to limit the needs statement to problems or unsatisfactory conditions for which a solution is truly needed. The more concise and focused the needs statement, the easier it will be later to compare and evaluate alternatives. FHWA guidance and the PD&E manual outline 9 elements of need shown here, but there can be other needs not on this list. Also, the project needs statement must include project status on any other needs elements that are applicable. If numerous elements apply, you may want to consider having primary and secondary purpose and needs. We're going to discuss each of these needs elements in detail. Each of these slides is packed with information and examples. This was intentional so that you can come back to this presentation at a later date and utilize this information to guide you through developing a purpose and needs statement. As I mentioned, the first need element is the only one required for all projects, and that is project status. Planning consistency is a component of project status. Therefore, we should provide a narrative referencing what is currently in the FDOT State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP, and if applicable, the MPO's Cost Feasible Long Range Transportation Plan, or LRTP, and the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. That describes all project phases. Depending on the phase of the project is in, these planning consistency documents must be attached in the Efficient Transportation Decision-Making, or ETDM, environmental screening tool, or as an attachment to the environmental document during the PD&E study. Also, confirm that the project description text and limits match what is shown in the LRTP. It is important to do this early in the life of the project because the limits need to match in order to receive planning consistency. Updating limits in the LRTP can take several months since the changes have to be approved by the city or county entity. Planning consistency is required for all projects. A project cannot receive location and design concept acceptance or LDCA if planning consistency is not obtained. OEM has planning consistency training available on their website. Lastly, within the project status section, describe the project's history, including measures taken to date, other agencies and government units involved, actions, spending, and schedules. I would like to direct your attention to the data sources box. Most of these needs elements slides have this box to provide examples of where you can find data to write about that particular element and provide the data or evidence that the deficiency of the problem exists. Our example for project status starts out with the project's history, beginning with the feasibility study and its results. A feasibility study was completed for this project in 2023. A build alternative was recommended for further review during the PD&E study that will provide a 4-lane divided roadway with multimodal improvements on Sunset Boulevard from 4th Street to Bay Bridge. The preliminary results also indicate that the left, center, and right alignment options are similar when compared to natural and human environment impacts. With this knowledge, the PD&E study will have the opportunity to further reduce adjacent impacts by considering potential combinations of all the mentioned alternative alignments in order to determine an optimal solution. Sunset Boulevard from 4th Street to Bay Bridge is listed in the cost feasible plan, which is Project 33 of the Pinellas County MPO 2050 LRTP, for preliminary engineering to provide multimodal improvements. This paragraph notes priority of the project and what the funding is designated for. Funding for PD&E and design for Sunset Boulevard is listed in the Forward Pinellas 2324 to 2829 TIP. The project is included in the current FDOT 23 to 27 STIP and the FDOT 23 to 27 5-year work program with $1.7 million programmed for the PD&E phase in fiscal year 2025. This paragraph fulfills the planning consistency requirement of the project status. It is important to note that we should not rely exclusively on planning or programming documents like the STIP to justify the project. It is not sufficient just to say, this project is called for by the STIP, as this does not convey the true underlying purpose and need of the project. When developing information concerning capacity, our next needs element, we need to consider the following questions. First, is the capacity of the existing facility inadequate to serve traffic? What is the projected transportation demand? What capacity is needed? And what is the level of service for existing and proposed facilities? Ways to answer these can be discussed to discuss the capacity of the present facility and its ability to meet the present and projected traffic demands. Also, discuss the capacity of the existing facility, its existing and anticipated level of service, and any operational deficiencies, but make sure to state the target level of service. The target is policy identified level of service, which is considered the acceptable capacity of that facility based on its context classification. A portion of the policy states, it is the department's intent to plan, design, and operate the state highway system at an acceptable level of service for the traveling public. The automobile mode level of service targets for the state highway system during peak travel hours are D in urbanized areas and C outside urbanized areas. For each of the remaining needs elements, I'm going to provide an example of a purpose and needs statement. This does not include the supporting data that is required after the needs statement. Here is an example of a purpose and need where capacity issues are the problem, and the land use and distribution centers, including a Walmart distribution center, are adding to the increase in traffic and future demand. The purpose of this project is to provide additional capacity on US 15 from Draeger Street to State Road 401 in order to accommodate existing capacity and future traffic demand for vehicle and truck traffic along the corridor. The need is to reduce traffic congestion on US 15 from Draeger Street to State Road 401 since the corridor is currently operating at a failing level of service F, but the target level of service is level of service C. This project is needed to accommodate future traffic demand since traffic, including truck volumes, is projected to increase. US 15 is an important east-west connection between the towns of McKinney and Goodwin and serves as an important regional trucking route. Types of supporting data that should be included after this needs statement would include, but is not limited to, existing and anticipated level of service and target level of service, along with truck volumes. Transportation demand can be a difficult need element to wrap our heads around, and it is not often used. It is often confused with capacity, but it is different and should not be written in conjunction with capacity. Questions we will need to consider are, first, will the project accommodate the forecasted transportation demand as shown in the adopted state and local transportation plans? Will the project meet future transportation demands based on the projected population, employment growth, and increase in freight movement or other demands on the transportation system? If data supports this need, then we would discuss the project's relationship to any statewide transportation plan or adopted urban transportation plan. We would also explain any related traffic forecasts that are different from previous estimates. Data sources can include transportation plans and forecasting studies. In this example, US 15 has 23 signalized intersections along the study corridor. The projected 2050 future traffic results in unacceptable signalized intersection level service at all intersections. Therefore, the corridor does not meet the future transportation demand based on projected population and employment growth. As such, additional capacity is needed on US 15 in order to meet the future transportation demands as outlined in the Florida-Alabama TPO LRTP. So the purpose of this project is to provide intersection improvements along US 15 in order to meet future traffic demand along the corridor. In 2050, the Florida-Alabama TPO LRTP states that all 23 signalized intersections along the corridor need to operate at a level of service C or above. The need of this project is to improve intersection configurations in order to meet the future transportation demand based on projected population and employment growth and desired level of service as outlined in the Florida-Alabama TPO LRTP. So types of supporting data that should be included after this statement would include, but is not limited to, traffic demand forecast information, population and employment growth in charts or tables, and information from forecasting studies, if applicable. Okay. Rarely used, but a viable element is social demands and economic development. One question to consider is, what projected economic development or land use changes indicate the need to modify the transportation facility, the network, or the system? To answer this, we can do the following. First, describe how the action will foster new employment, benefit schools, land use plans, recreation facilities, and/or discuss types of social and economic traffic generators, both existing and planned, which exert travel demands on the facility. It is important that the purpose and need be grounded in transportation, and as such, a description of the projected economic development or land use changes that indicate the need to improve the highway. In order for economic development to be considered a primary need, there must be demonstrated progress in implementing the master or comprehensive plan, such as zoning changes, investment or funding for proposed developments, or active development. Furthermore, the purpose and need must provide quantifiable data that illustrates existing and future conditions related to transportation needs and will impact planning development when built. This focus will help avoid defining a broad purpose that may require a vast range of transportation and/or non-transportation alternatives for promoting economic development. There are numerous data sources shown here, but if we use this needs element, it must be well documented and may require an economic analysis to be completed. Our example here is for the town of Cary, who has experienced a tremendous increase in traffic in the vicinity of I-99 and US 83 intersection. New significant businesses, including big box stores and an existing adjacent casino, are causing increased transportation demands along the existing network. There is also a planned expansion of the casino through adjacent available lands at the interchange. It should be noted that this has been shown that the proposed development can generate increases in annual sales tax revenue for the town of Cary. So the purpose of this project is to facilitate economic development by improving access and traffic operations to both developed and undeveloped lands located near the interchange. The need for this project is to reduce the existing and future congestion at the interchange. Based on a report by the FDOT, the existing road network could not support the casino expansion, which would then limit an increase in jobs and continue to constrain traffic to other local businesses. Attachments and data that can support the need for this project may include a map of the interchange area and where the box stores and casino are located in relation to the interchange, a map of the casino expansion, data showing the anticipated increase in jobs, and if there's anything documenting the proposed increase in annual sales tax revenue. Since an economic analysis was completed for this project, it should be referenced. Safety is another need element that is often used that must have supporting data. Questions to consider include, is the proposed project necessary to correct an existing or potential safety hazard? This is not limited to only vehicle safety, but also to bicycle and pedestrian safety. Is the existing crash rate higher than the statewide average for similar facilities? And lastly, how will the proposed project improve it? The safety section is a good place to address emergency or hurricane evacuation as well, if it is a primary need with supporting data. When writing about safety, discuss crashes which have occurred in the study area that may indicate a need for improvements. The discussion may include crash types, frequency, crash pattern, crash contributing causes, and the rate of crashes when compared with the statewide average for similar facilities. This information is often best presented in a table and summarized in the text. Also identify existing high hazard sections of the facility and how the project will address this safety problem, considering attaching heat maps if available. If applicable, discuss how the project will support emergency evacuation of designated evacuation routes. Many transportation projects produce safety benefits in the sense that completing the project will tend to reduce crash rates and/or the overall number of crashes. Yet the potential for a safety benefit does not necessarily mean that safety is one of the needs elements of the project. In general, safety should not be included as a project purpose and need, or it should be included as a project purpose and need only when there is an identified safety need supported by facts. For example, a crash rate that exceeds the statewide average for similar facilities. This safety example shows a project that is a 2-lane undivided rural roadway with a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. The roadway does not have lighting and has several areas with sharp turns and no passing lanes, which has led to a recent increase in head-on collisions and fatalities. The purpose of this project is to address safety on State Road 234 from Campmore Road to Haskell Drive. The need is to address safety concerns on State Road 234 from Campmore Road to Haskell Drive, resulting from the high crash rates, which are significantly higher with an average rate of 4.35 than the statewide average of 1.72 for similar facilities. The 2-lane undivided highway is experiencing a recent increase in the number of head-on collisions, resulting in 8 fatalities between 2020 and 2022. These collisions are due to the roadway having sharp turns, vehicles passing each other, and vehicles that are passing each other. There are currently no passing lanes along this segment of the corridor. Types of supporting data that should be included after this statement would include, but is not limited to, comparison of crash rates to the statewide average by year, the types of crashes, the number of injuries and fatalities. Our next need element is system linkage. Questions we would consider here are, is the proposed project a local, regional, or interregional connecting link? Links include connection of existing transportation facilities, modal facilities, and geographic areas. And the other question is, how does it fit in the transportation system? To answer these, we discuss how the proposed project fits into the existing and future local, regional, and state transportation system or network, and contributes to the movement of people, goods, and services. Also, discuss how the proposed project contributes to the multimodal transportation network. This is a great opportunity to include maps to show the existing and needed linkages. So for this example, currently the city of Bayfield, along with surrounding regional destinations, including Stateside Air Force Base, access to I-70 via State Road 65 through downtown Bayfield. State Road 65 is currently over capacity because every road uses State Road 65 to access the interstate. The city is planning a bypass around Bayfield to connect Stateside Air Force Base directly to I-70, which would reduce traffic on State Road 65 and improve regional mobility and connectivity. The purpose of this project is to increase access to I-70, to reduce travel demand on State Road 65, and improve regional mobility and connectivity for Stateside Air Force Base. The need for the project is to better facilitate regional travel by providing an alternative route to the highway and providing relief to the congested State Road 65 corridor. Running between Sunny Beach to the south and Canterville to the north, State Road 65 carries the majority of the regional traffic and provides primary access to and from Stateside Air Force Base and the surrounding beach communities. This is the perfect example where supporting data included after the needs statement can add clarity. In this case, including a map showing the linkage of I-70, Bayfield, the Stateside Air Force Base, and the regional facilities helps the reader understand the road network for context. When other modes of transportation are involved, modal interrelationships is sometimes an applicable need element. The question to consider here is how will the proposed project interface with and serve to complement other modes of transportation, such as airports, freight facilities, rail and port facilities, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and passenger transit services. We can answer this if we identify the needs to address other modes of transportation associated with the project. We can also discuss how the proposed action will complement other modes of transportation. Data sources that can be used for this needs element include freight plans, master plans, LRTPs, and other plans. A project example for modal interrelationships involves the Port of Riverdale, which is expanding its facility to receive and distribute more goods. Highway 10 is the major distribution route that connects the port to I-99. Highway 10, a two-lane road, is currently at capacity for vehicles and port freight and will not be able to accommodate the additional future freight traffic from an expanded port facility. The purpose of this project is to improve intermodal connectivity by creating a corridor with increased capacity along Highway 10 between the port and I-99 to accommodate future freight. The need for this project is to eliminate significant delays of freight between the port and I-99. Another common need element is roadway deficiencies. Questions to consider here are, is the proposed project necessary to correct existing roadway deficiencies? How will the proposed project address the deficiencies? Is there a deficient or substandard bridge? And does the current facility meet design standards? To answer these questions, we must provide two things: the need and the rationale behind reconstructing or replacing a roadway or an existing bridge, and a detailed description of the existing structure and their deficiencies. Deficiencies may include substandard geometrics, lack of turning lanes, load limits on structures, inadequate CIS roadway design standards, and/or high maintenance costs. For bridges, the deficiencies identified may be the result of structural or functional ratings, horizontal and vertical clearances, state of repair, weight restrictions, or limitations. This information can be obtained from the bridge inspection reports. We would need to use the most recent reports, which can be obtained through the District Structures Office and may require an application and personal identification for that information. Information from these reports can be summarized in the need, but should not be attached. A good example of this is the Seaside Beach Causeway, which consists of two bridges. The North Bridge does not meet minimum U.S. Coast Guard clearances and is starting to deteriorate from the saltwater conditions. Both bridges were constructed in 1960 and are nearing the end of their useful service lives and are considered structurally deficient and functionally obsolete by the FDOT. The next closest bridge crossing to the mainland from the beach communities is 20 miles south in Loveland Beach. So the purpose of this project is to address structural issues related to the existing Seaside Beach Causeway bridges. The need for this project is to address the deficiencies of the existing Seaside Causeway bridges, which are considered structurally deficient and functionally obsolete by the FDOT, and the current navigation and vertical clearance of the North Bridge do not meet minimum requirements by the U.S. Coast Guard for bridge heights over the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway. Data to support this need from the bridge inspection report should be summarized with the roadway deficiencies section. And again, we would not attach the bridge inspection report.
Wendy, sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
Someone on the question saying that she cannot hear. I want to confirm that all the people can hear you because I can. So can you please send us in the question if you cannot hear? Okay, you can. Anyone send us that he can hear?
maybe you could respond to that person to
Yeah,
log out and log back in. Okay.
she did 2 times. Okay, so people can
Mhm.
hear. Okay, that's good. Okay, sorry for interrupting.
Okay. Yeah, no, please. Okay, so one moment. Our final need element is legislation. This is another element that is not often used because there has to be legislation passed in order to use it. The question to consider here would be, is there a federal, state, and local government mandate for the action? To answer this, we would document the need to respond to the federal, state, and local government requirements. When using a federal, state, and local government mandate to support the purpose and need for a proposed project or action, it is important to check the wording of the legislation for specific references to the project with respect to design, location, mode, etc. An example of legislation need is for this US 99 corridor project on the Strategic Intermodal System, or SIS. Due to continued population growth through the state and increasing pressure on Florida's interstate system, Florida Statute 339.66 has mandated the FDOT to consider improvements along US 99 in order to maintain and preserve free flow conditions into the future. The US 99 PD&E study will evaluate non-toll-based solutions for improving the operations and capacity along this corridor in order to achieve this purpose. So you will notice that there is a Florida statute mandate in play here. This must be directly referenced in the purpose and need. So we would write, consistent with 339.66 of the Florida statutes, the purpose of the proposed action is to upgrade existing facilities to controlled and or limited access arterial roadways to achieve free flow conditions between the Metro Parkway and I-99, or I-90, excuse me. The need for this project is to improve the operational deficiencies along US 99 to meet the requirements of 339.66 of the Florida statutes. So before we move into our final training segment, I want to point out some considerations for the purpose and need. First, careful consideration should be given when describing purposes for the proposed action. Items should not be included in the purpose and need statement for the sake of increasing substance. For example, the purpose of this project is to increase capacity, improve safety, and modal interrelationships. If data is only available to support the need to increase capacity and safety, then modal interrelationships should not be included in the purpose and need statement. Only needs that have supporting data and factual information should be included. Lastly, although environmental protection and community enhancement are important goals, these issues should not be a part of the purpose and needs statement. When writing a purpose and needs statement, use plain language and action verbs such as to provide, to obtain, to repair. Use bullets or numbering to itemize purpose and needs. Earlier, I talked about how the need should establish the evidence that a deficiency or problem exists or will exist if projected population and planned land use growth are realized. This evidence is in the data. Provide specific supporting data for each need. The supporting data should be current, accurate, and above all, relevant to the issues being considered. If an agency and public involvement If any agency and public involvement in developing the purpose and need exists, describe it. Use graphics, charts, tables, and maps to illustrate needs. Shown here is a heat map that can identify high hazard sections of the facility. These tables show the existing and projected traffic without improvement along with the target level of service. Other tables show here identify average crash rates by year in comparison to the statewide average, and also the types of crashes in the project area. Here are a few more examples of supporting visual data, including a travel time reliability map that can be used to support transportation demand, a peak season daily traffic volume graph that can support capacity or modal interrelationships, and details of an origin destination study that can be used to support system linkage or social demands and economic development. Lastly, here's an example of a complete purpose and needs statement. You can see shown here that there are three parts of a purpose and needs statement: the purpose, the need, and then the supporting facts and/or data. For this example, it has the required project status and the three more needs elements: capacity, safety, and modal interrelationships with supporting visual data. So we have finished this section of the training. So we have our next group of quiz questions. So if you go back to Menti, we will have a new code. And looks like someone already answered. One person answered, but use this new code at the top to answer this question, which is, which of the following tips is not recommended for developing a purpose and need statement? I think you all got it. So C is the correct answer. Nice work. Provide a list of preliminary alternatives under consideration. The purpose and need statement is not a discussion of potential solutions to the problems. So our next question is a true or false. A project status description is only required in the need when the project has a long history with other agencies and government units. For those that chose false, that is correct. The project status is an element of the need and is required for every project. To keep you on your toes, we will have a new Menti login number again. Please use this code to log in for these next two questions. When you log in, the question is, which of the following data sources are not recommended for understanding capacity needs? D is the correct answer here. Sustainability studies do not typically provide evidence of capacity needs. Our last question for this section is, which one of the following topics is included in a purpose and need statement? So the correct answer is C. The justification of why the project is being completed is included to satisfy the need of the project. We will answer this question later. Just want to have it set up. Okay, so we have learned what a purpose and need statement is and why we are required to complete one, along with how to develop a purpose and need statement. Our last training section is how do we use a purpose and need statement? So the purpose and need is used as a key factor in determining the range of alternatives. A well-defined purpose and need is especially important for projects that may be subject to other laws shown here. It is a vital factor when explaining why the FDOT is choosing a single alternative in decision documents, such as the record of decision or the finding of no significant impact. A well-defined purpose and needs statement is the baseline in the development, evaluation, and elimination or advancement of alternatives, including selection of the preferred alternative. It will determine which alternatives are reasonable, prudent, and practicable. Alternatives that fail to meet the purpose and need can be eliminated without detailed study. Also, the purpose and need is instrumental in illustrating that a no-build alternative will not solve an existing transportation problem. It should be noted that the secondary purpose and needs are not used to evaluate and eliminate or advance project alternatives. So here is an example of how a purpose and need can be used to develop, evaluate, and eliminate alternatives. The project is to repair or replace the aging Lincoln Causeway bascule bridge with a new structure. Many of you are familiar with an alternatives evaluation matrix, and the purpose and need is a component of that matrix. Based on the purpose and need statement, 3 criteria were identified that need to be met to advance the alternative forward. First, it meets U.S. Coast Guard requirements for navigation. Second, it reduces bridge openings. And third, it provides safe access for multimodal transportation. There are 4 alternatives and a no-build or repair alternative, which is a viable alternative throughout the PD&E study. The low-level movable bridge does not reduce bridge openings, therefore it does not meet the purpose and need and has been eliminated. The 55-foot high-level fixed bridge was also eliminated because the U.S. Coast Guard requires a new fixed bridge in that location to be 65 feet or higher. Our second example is a new corridor project with a no-build and 8 build alternatives shown here. The purpose and need identified 4 criteria. The alternatives need to correct geometric and operational deficiencies of the existing highway. It needs to improve access to the intermodal and freight activity centers in the Homer City area and new international airport, provide capacity to meet future traffic demands, and improve emergency evacuation network and reduce evacuation times. As a result, 2 alternatives were eliminated because they did not correct geometric or operational deficiencies of the existing highway. As shown here, all major federal and state-funded projects require a purpose and need statement. Minor projects such as a Type 1 categorical exclusion or CE and non-major state actions do not require one. For the major projects, the level of detail for the purpose and need statement can vary and is dependent on the project type and complexity. A Type 2 CE will have less complicated and detailed needs than those projects classified as environmental assessments and environmental impact statements. So it's now time to learn about the when do we complete a purpose and need statement. This timeline helps us visualize it. The purpose and need is first developed during the planning phase and the efficient transportation decision-making, referred to as ETDM, planning screen. It is identified in transportation plans, and this may be the first opportunity agencies have to provide input. The next time we see the purpose and need statement is the ETDM programming screen. If a planning screen was completed, then the information in the purpose and need statement should be updated. If not previously screened, we would develop a new purpose and need statement. During the programming screen, the lead agency, which is typically the FDOT Office of Environmental Management, approves or does not approve the purpose and need statement. As we move forward into the life of the project, into the PD&E study, the purpose and need statement should be consistent from the ETDM screenings through the PD&E study. Same need components, but updated information. The purpose and need statement for the environmental document and the preliminary engineering report need to be exactly the same. It is important to review current transportation plans and confirm the project has planning consistency. During the PD&E study, we should verify whether supporting information is still valid and refine if necessary, along with gather new data to fill any information gaps. But I want to caution you on knowing the difference between refinements and changes. This is an important slide because it is often forgotten or not fully understood and can delay a project from being approved. As the PD&E scope becomes more refined, the purpose and need evolves and is not final until the environmental document is approved. No changes or refinements can occur in the design phase. If the data used to establish the need becomes outdated as the purpose and need or as the PD&E study moves forward, we can refine the need with current data and more detail. If only this is done, then the purpose and need does not have to be reapproved by OEM. But if you change the purpose and need statement where it is altered to add, change, or eliminate previously approved purpose and need statements and elements, then we are required to coordinate and have the purpose and need statement approved again by OEM. Also keep in mind that if changes are made, it may be necessary to revisit prior alternative screening decisions and potentially reinitiate the public and participating agency involvement pursuant to 23 U.S.C. 139. So we've come to our last quiz question. It is the final Menti code that you'll need to enter, shown here. So this is a new code. When you get in, the question is true or false. The PD&E purpose and need statement must be consistent with what is in the ETDM programming screen. true is the correct answer. The PD&E purpose and needs statement must be consistent with what is in the ETDM programming screen. Refinements can be made to reflect current data in more detail, but any changes will require coordination with and approval from OEM. So this concludes the training. We hope this training has been informative and will support you in building a solid foundation when writing your purpose and needs statements. There are a few key takeaways that we hope remain forefront in your mind. First, the purpose is the what of the proposed action. It is not a solution statement. The need identifies the problem or problems the proposed project will address. The purpose and need is the foundation the project is built on. A well-defined purpose and need can help determine which alternatives are reasonable, prudent, and practicable. Alternatives that fail to meet the purpose and need can be eliminated without detailed study, and the purpose and need statement can be refined in the PD&E study, but if it is changed, it must go back to OEM for coordination and reapproval. These are the resources that were used to develop this training. This training has been recorded and will be able to be accessed at the OEM website for future reference. So thank you for attending. If you have any questions, please enter them in your chat box, and we will try to address a few of these questions with the remaining time. Any questions we're not able to address, we will respond to you via email. You can also direct questions to NG Shaman at the contact information listed here. Again, any non-FDOT attendees who want credit for the class will need to provide their name, email, and PE number, if applicable, to the chat box. We will use this information to send out certifications. Okay, so let's see. Trying to get to these questions. I'm not really seeing them so much, Angie.
Yeah, most of the question about the presentation is going to be available, and the presentation will be available on our website with the PowerPoint and the recording. And there is a question about the purpose and need for the transit project. Any advice for developing purpose and need statement for FDOT transit projects?
Yeah, so I would go and look at the different needs elements. It's funny, I just reviewed a transit project purpose and need last night, and it fell under system linkage, connection of different multimodal areas, and that's sometimes what it would accommodate. Modal interrelationships might apply, so you have to look through and see, where does this apply? Why am I doing this transit project? And only include the items that are applied for it. It may only be one. For instance, this one I reviewed last night was only one need, and that's okay. You have your project status, and then you have your need as well, that additional need. It cannot be project status alone.
There is other question. Can an element be added to the purpose and need after screening?
Yes, it can. And like I said, towards the end of the project, this presentation, projects do evolve and they change. And sometimes those needs elements change with it over time. And that's okay, but you have to rewrite that purpose and need and coordinate with OEM to get it approved. And then you can base your alternatives analysis off that new purpose and need statement. So you can change it, but you do have to coordinate and get it reapproved.
I want to make,
Wendy, while Angie is looking through the questions, Could you go back to that quiz question that was talking about what is supposed to be in a purpose and need? There were a few answers about the benefits of the project and cost estimates. Could you explain why those answers were not correct?
Okay, yep. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm clicking through here. Okay. So the benefits of the project is giving a solution to that purpose and need. Like, I'm going to build this project, and then it's going to, open up all this access and reduce these things. And it's giving you the solutions versus the problem. We want to focus on the problems of it, why we're doing it, and what those problems are, not the outcome of the project. So cost estimates are not included because that's more of a project detail. You can include that in project description, but that's not really part of your purpose need, a cost estimate. And then environmental impacts summary. As I mentioned, environmental impacts are very important in a PD&E study. I mean, that's a big part of what we do, but that's not part of the purpose and need. The purpose and need is based on transportation and the need for the transportation and how to improve that, what the problems are to better facilitate that.
There is a question about, can we do informal coordination with OEM before formally submitting the purpose and need for review during the ETDM? And for sure, yeah, you can send us and we can help reviewing before putting on ETDM.
CEQ stands for Council of Environmental Quality. Sorry, I didn't spell that out in the presentation. Angie, I know you're recording this and I can send you a PDF, but will they get a copy of the presentation? Like, can we send them a PDF of it? I think it would be useful so that they can refer to it when writing it versus
Sure,
having
yeah.
to listen to me again.
I think we can include that, or if I cannot put it on our website, I will send it via email for all the attendees.
Okay. Do you see any other questions?
Can an element be added to the PN? We answered this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any advice for developing? I think we are good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, if you have questions in the end, later on, you can contact Angie at any time and we can get responses to you. Please use this presentation. I know there was a lot of information there when I developed it. There was a reason. I wanted you to be able to kind of use this as a guidebook almost when you're developing these to help you with that. I use this presentation when I develop purpose and needs all the time. It can help guide you. So thank you so much for attending, and Angie, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you for attending, and for the PowerPoint and PDF, I will send it via email. If it will not be available on our website, I will update you. And for the certificate, we're gonna work on that and send it to all of you. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.